Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello to you and welcome back to the channel where you join me at Estoril Circuit in Portugal. As you can probably tell from the lineup behind me, for the first drive in the new McLaren Senna. It's a legendary circuit, but I've got a tiny little secret to tell you. I'm going to be taking delivery of a Senna myself next year. I'll tell you more about that later on, but today we're going to get to fully explore and experience this epic machine out on this track. So let's get started. This is the McLaren Senna. The event is being held here at Estoril Circuit near to Lisbon because it's where the late Ayrton Senna won his first ever Formula 1 Grand Prix. You can see a line of the cars just getting ready to head out, but we've got a number of different colours: Delta Red, Victory Grey, Ginormous Blue and Pure White as well. We'll be able to take a full look at the specs and details of the different cars shortly. I'm going to be driving one of these a few different sessions to experience it. But like I was saying, my little secret that I've had one of these on order for quite a while now. In fact, over 2 years ago, I put in my letter of intent for McLaren's next Ultimate Series, a track-focused supercar. This thing might look like a GT3 race car, but it can wear number plates and also be driven on the road. Today we're going to be experiencing it on track though, hopefully more to come in the future with it on road, but we can fully discover everything about it, from the iconic glass doors worn in the side, the glass panels in the side of the doors, but also to feel what the Aero is like. The car generates 800 kilos of downforce. So where does today really begin? I think I probably need to actually get suited up and go for a first little experience. Let's jump straight into this and get out on track and see what it is like. I'm suited and booted. I'll need to grab a helmet, but this is going to be the car that I drive, the Ginormous Blue Senna. Could that be an option for mine? We will see. I'm nervous, I'm excited, anticipation is in overdrive, but let's jump in the car and head on out and see what this is like. Okay then, here we are, inside the McLaren Senna. It's time to get gloves on, properly set up. We've had a few laps in the 720S to get familiar with the track. This is nerves mixed with excitement, so time to start it up. And it's into life. So we've got to confirm that it's in race mode. Press and hold the race button. Goes into the folded display. The car is sitting low. Here we go then, my first meters in the McLaren Senna. Down the pit lane. This feels already ridiculous. The vision, the visibility is the incredible thing. Seeing through the door windows how open it feels with all of the glass everywhere. We're going out towards the track to just get a small taster for what this is going to have in store and learn a little bit more about it, but my goodness. Okay, I'm driving in a Senna right now. Whew. And out onto the track we go. Okay, so first lap is clearly just going to be a sanity check. We're on the Trofeo tyres. This is always the thing, when you get into a car that is significantly more powerful than what you're used to driving or what you were just driving, you kind of drive it at that ability while you're learning. Oh, even just a small squeeze of the throttle pedal. This is already, it just turns in. There's not even a hint of, wow. We are away already. This is astronomically fast. Concentration in a big way. Is clearly on a different stratosphere. The braking, but the feel of everything, how you can use the aero of it, the feel of it. The steering is fantastic. The front end communicates everything with you. The speed though, the performance, the braking is astonishing. Okay, Okay then, cooling the car down and heading back towards the pit lane. What an incredible experience. That's just the first little outing, but to get familiar with this, it's very, very race car. You feel that it's all in the delicate adjustments and movements. Performance is in a different world. It makes the 720S and 675 LT that are normally incredibly fast cars look almost pedestrian in comparison. And then the looks of this car as I see another one blasting away. But let's head back into the pit lane, have a breather, and look more around the car. I've taken a few minutes to try and reflect and absorb what I have just experienced. This thing is out of this world. It's into a new category of its own, and I think it's going to take me hours to reflect and fully understand what I have just driven and what it is capable of. We're familiar with cars in different categories: sports cars, supercars above that, even more recently hypercars, and up into mega cars. But this has just rewritten the rulebook in a new category of aero cars. That's where it's going. Cars that have so much by way of aerodynamics, it just does not make sense that it can be road legal. This car could drive on a mountain pass, could drive through the center of London or Monaco or Los Angeles in that configuration on road tires. It doesn't make sense at all, but I'm going to have another drive later on to try and communicate more about what it's like. For now, let's take a walk around, run over some of the facts and figures and headline details about this car, as well as pop into the pit boxes where there is an exhibition with plenty of the components and parts that we can look at in more detail. What we're looking at then is the second member of McLaren's Ultimate Series, their absolute top-end road vehicles. It follows about 5 years after the McLaren P1, which was a pioneer in terms of technology, but this is a car that is entirely track focused. It's a very different angle, without hybrid assistance to the motor, with the lowest weight possible, and about being the fastest car they could create and build to go around the racetrack. Hence, it's wearing the name of Ayrton Senna. With the support of the Senna Foundation, his name has been lent to this vehicle to really symbolise what it represents, especially after his history and championship winning seasons with the McLaren race team. And as I mentioned, that is why we are at the Estoril circuit today, where he won his first race back in the 80s before sadly he passed away in a race in San Marino. But the car, I think, clearly is a worthy tribute to that name at the moment. So let's just talk a little bit more about it. The headline numbers for you. There is a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 running the rear wheels with 800 horsepower, 789 brake horsepower, as well as 800 newton meters of torque. The aerodynamics, 800 kilos of downforce at 250 kilometers an hour. Just think about that number, 40% more than the P1, thanks to that ginormous wing at the rear, the extended front end, and we'll take a look in more detail at all of the aerodynamics shortly. It weighs less than 1,200 kilos. The full weight is 1,198 kilos dry weight. As you see it, wet weight would be about 80 kilos or so more than that, but it is a fantastically light car, thanks to the carbon Monocage III, the carbon body panels throughout, basically every single thing that McLaren could do to make this as light as possible. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour is just 2.8 seconds. 0 to 200 kilometers an hour is just 6.8 seconds. 0 to 300 kilometers an hour, 186 miles an hour, is just 16.8 seconds, even with this amount of drag from the downforce elements at that speed. That is astonishingly quick, only 0.3 behind the P1 without this crazy level of aero, and it will go on to a top speed of 340 kilometers per hour. That's 211 miles per hour, and at that speed, if it didn't have to trim off the aero to actually prevent damage to the tyres and the suspension, it would have more downforce than the weight of the car, which would mean it could drive upside down on a ceiling, which is absolutely crazy. Just to give you a sense of how race inspired this car actually is, to save some weight for the wiring loom to the start button, it's up here on the roof. The starter button is right there, so that they didn't have to install wiring looms. If you look at the luggage space, it's just back here, enough room to fit a helmet and a race suit and nothing else. You can opt for the car without even air conditioning. It comes by default without air conditioning. Yes, most customers will put it back in, but that is all again about saving weight. It doesn't even come by default with a sound system. You have to add a sound system because obviously that would add a few kilos. Things like center locks on a McLaren for the first time, the exposed carbon fibre, the entire body is actually made from carbon fibre. This signature feature, the glass door that you can see through, the feeling that gives you inside, as I explained a little bit, is out of this world. Tribute back to the McLaren F1 with these low half-height side windows, Of course, they can only go down so far given the lower window, but again, saving weight by not having so much movable glass. The whole thing is track, track, and more track. Here is a pretty special room to look around, and we've got a Myra Orange Senna here. This was the launch colour, now with the addition of the MSO design style on it. And also, just catch a glimpse outside, there is P1 OOV, the legendary P1. But let's come and have a look here at some of the different components that you can see that make up this car. And we'll start right here, I guess. The wheels, the ultra lightweight wheels with the centre lock. Behind them, the CCMR brakes, the brakes that take 7 months to manufacture, but are created for the ultimate in stopping power. Basically, these are complete racing brakes. Bit daunting what the cost of replacement might be, but the stopping power is phenomenal. Then all the different body panels, clearly very small, minimized wherever possible. For example, this panel, the front fender, weighs just 660 grams. Carbon fibre, as you can see from the back, but quite literally weighs next to nothing. Honestly, 660 grams, think about that. The entire body panels for the car only weigh 60 kilos in total when you add them all up. The carbon Monocage III. This is a development of Monocell II that was used for the 720S, which added, now for the Senna, this rear section as well. The rear bulkhead that has been done for obviously the biggest amount of strength possible, but safety as well, being inside the carbon fibre tub that's connected through the roof for entire complete rigidity wherever it can have it. You can just see though, this is literally carbon fibre everywhere, and the engine bolts straight onto the back of that. The wing for the rear, the wing itself generates 500 kilos of downforce, but it weighs less than 5 kilos. Just this is 5 kilos. I mean, I can pick it up just between my thumb and finger, just to emphasize quite how well that works. Double layer, the second layer of a wing, basically multiplying the effect of the first, and it has various different positions. So air brake, it pivots right up, it will sit flatter for DRS, drag reduction system, so that you can accelerate and get maximum power out of it. And one really cool feature, this little bracket here is inspired by Senna's MP5 Formula 1 car from the day. The end plates around the side of it are all about holding the air underneath the wing, so they prevent it from escaping around the sides, and that is also why it has the swan neck that we can come through and just see on this car, to keep the underside of the wing as clean as possible to avoid interrupting the airflow underneath here as it comes through. Everything's just open and radical in design. While the car's aligned in the pit lane, let's just run over some more of the Aero, but before we do, there's a number plate bracket which literally clips in and magnetizes to the front of the car, so when you get to the track you can pop it off and go and drive without the interruption of airflow at the front. So starting right here, in fact, look at the length of the splitter. It is 150 millimeters further forwards than even the P1, 75 millimeters, 7.5 centimeters further towards the front than the P1 GTR had. And that's the noise, I think, of a 720S blasting around the racetrack. It has the thinnest possible front lip that legislation allows, and this front part is actually removable. So let's say you were to drive it on the road and you were catching this and braking it, you wouldn't have to get an entire new front end. You can just replace that front leading edge component. Coming around right here, you can see these nostrils which take air through and release it just beneath the mirrors. You also have a Y duct underneath the front of the car which releases air here, just in front of the windshield, to go over and around the back. Equally, air goes through the front, through the large duct at the front, and comes out and is directed around, with the nose bridge quite cleverly allowing clean air to go over the top of the car towards the roof snorkel, so that cool clean air goes through there rather than the air that's gone through the radiators. If we come either side of the front, you'll notice the very smart headlights that are split into two different components, but a lot of airflow managed through here. The active Aero blades that will open and close at various speeds. These are in contrast colours on this car, and then the side fenders that you have here which direct air around the outside of the wheels as well, to cleanly direct it towards the various intakes on the back half of the car. If we come around here and just close down the door just so you can see some of this, and look at how open that section is there underneath the door mirror. It even has soft close, by the way. The doors will literally pull down closed, but you can see it's all quite open to allow airflow to be managed and directed around the side of the car to get the most cooling possible through the ginormous vents back here. If we come above that, on the deck lid, you've got the gurney flaps here. Now what they do is direct air up and out the way, creating an area of low pressure behind, which means that the air can be pulled out of the engine and cool it as effectively as possible. Where it's completely open, with the louvres positioned to allow the optimum cooling out of the back, it's very, very open down here, but with covers where required. Again, legislation making sure that no foreign objects can get stuck inside the car, but basically it's all about getting that hot air out. This thing is running to the top degree. It needs cooling as a priority. In the center, the exhaust system surrounded by a heat shield, but this is a titanium exhaust finisher. It's an Inconel exhaust inside, super lightweight as you can imagine. The bottom pipe is the muffler. US cars don't have that. They have a twin style design rather than the triple exhaust pipes back there. Just look at that. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Continuing lower down that, you have the strip LEDs, about 80 LEDs in there for the red and orange at the back, but the thinnest possible to minimize air interference or anything that might make a negative experience. And then down here, the double diffuser, you can see right the way through the carbon fiber of the lower diffuser edge there. Down on the ground, the fins right down how it's sitting in race mode at the moment. And even around the side, these fins, again, directing and controlling airflow around the back of the car. The tail edge, this final edge of the car, sits 180 millimeters lower than the 720S, 18 centimeters lower. That is obviously to do with the teardrop cabin, to have smooth air where the car can just cut through it and glide through any kind of air as best as possible. You can see this is the final design for the swan arms on the rear wing back here. Wow, there is so much to talk about. The braking distances, the CCMRs mean it will stop in just from 100 kilometers an hour in just 29.5 meters. From 200 kilometers an hour, it will stop in 100 meters. The P1 was 116, just to give that some context. So nearly 15% or so more efficient in terms of braking ability. What a crazy thing. Inside, it's carbon, it's Alcantara everywhere you look. The folding display, I'll jump in and show you more of the interior shortly. This control moves forwards and backwards with the seat. You've got your racing harnesses, but more or less it's completely stripped out, even down to having the gas struts for the doors exposed. It's a dream car, this thing. It would be criminal not to come and have a quick look at the Ultimate Series founder, the McLaren P1, a legend in its own right with over 900 horsepower thanks to the setup of the 3.8 litre twin-turbo V8 as well as the hybrid configuration as well. But that is a completely different proposition, still such a pretty and iconic car, but the Senna is designed to be brutal. It's time then for the second run, but doesn't this lineup of multiple Sennas just look unreal? Even a 720S is such a fantastic looking car, but compared to these, it almost looks rather normal, so to speak, as it heads on out. I love that one in the Kionos blue, but all of the colours, the lineup is just mega. Anyway, let's get back out on track. Away we go down the pit lane, and immediately it's just like before. The craziness of the 360 experience around you when you're in the car. You can fold the dash up and down. If you have it up, you get more information. If you have it down, you can see straight out over the scuttle. We've got the air conditioning blowing on full blast, but the rawness, the vibrations you feel all the way through you in the car. The gearbox, the 7-speed dual clutch with the rocker paddles that we've seen in previous McLarens, the small tight steering wheel finished in Alcantara, the huge wing that actually sits above the rear visibility. You can't even see it in the rear view mirror. Oh, there we go. My heart is pounding with excitement for this. Onto the track, and away we go. You have to watch your speed so carefully because the rate at which it picks up, and there's so much trail braking that you can get away with in the corners. But there's more to go. Wow! The way you can settle the car back down with a change. Well, it's cool following another car just to watch what the wing does. Seeing it move up and down, it's a very, very active wing. Feel it flying around. You just got a great view of our wing flying up. You don't actually see what the wing's doing from inside, but it's incredibly active. Train your muscles for driving this even more than we're doing today. Anyway, let's back it off now. Take it a little bit easier down towards the end. pulling the brakes, cool down lap. Just to think about this, when you're driving, you could fold the screen down, have it in that view, just to experience it for a moment where you get just key information. But slow speed, the feel, the steering is pinpoint. McLaren's have always been so brilliant. Great view over the front scuttle, but the connection from the wheels to the steering and what you feel the car is doing through your body, especially in these seats. This is the car with the touring seats, the slightly wider ones, but everything communicates itself back to you. This is a car from another planet. This is absolutely out of this world. Honestly, what does one say? Just, it doesn't feel intimidating. I'm amazed that I've been able to drive this car that hard and not have any moments or causes for concern. Just outright performance, and so much of it in bounds. It just, the feel of the power when you pick up on it, and how quickly it gets moving, and how light the car is, and how nimble it is, even though it's still quite a large car. I'm just going fast. The noise perhaps could be improved, I'm not gonna lie. It feels like it could be noisier, more grunt, but this is a track car. This is about going fast and not fake engineering in that respect. Just come and actually have a look at the exhaust. Look at how the titanium exhaust tips are going blue, and even the box that you can see inside. That's a sign that it's been driven properly, and then eventually they kind of go bronze and you don't see the blueness. That's just during the earlier stages of the car being driven. But it speaks for itself. This car is definitely worthy of the Senna name. There is no doubt about that. It is so incredibly quick, it boggles the mind. It is, let's just say I'm excited for it. Bring it on, bring on more tracks. Today has been incredible, absolutely incredible. It's time to take a better look at the interior, so we'll jump into this Myra orange car, but before we do, just check out this engine bay. That glass cover and what it reveals, the world of carbon fibre inside it. The 4-litre twin-turbo V8, it has a carbon fibre plenum on the top. That is 50% of the weight of the 720S unit, just 2.9 kilos. They literally, with this car, went about saving weight, reached a target, and then saved even more on top of that. Another 5% came out of it, but that carbon fibre in there is lovely. You've got the glass backboard, so you can see through towards the control panel in the front. We'll see the reverse view of that in a second. But this thing has 800 horsepower from 7,250 RPM and 700 of the 800 Newton meters, all the way from 3,000 RPM up. That is an astonishing power delivery. Just look how open this area is though from that back view. Absolutely incredible. But let's come around and open it up. The door handles are located inside this insert. A press of the button and they swing upwards and outwards with hinges mounted up on the roof panel, but also the gas strut that you have there towards the dashboard. Traditionally this would be hidden or tucked away behind a trim panel, but here it's exposed. The thickness of the door card is just the crazy thing. It is literally the thinnest layers that they need. Everything is carbon fibre, just painted on the outside, visual on the inside for the entire door card surrounding the glass. This car has the optional Bowers and Wilkins sound system as well, otherwise you'd have no audio, but you look at all of those shapes, especially underneath the door mirror on that front panel. Just the craziest of design. And of course this is the bottom of the car, the carbon fibre under tray that sits under the bottom. And here we have the monocage that we had taken a look at just over here in the exhibition, but trimmed with carbon and Alcantara everywhere you look. So the car has two different types of seats, normal seats and touring seats. The difference is actually in the pads. So the seat itself is, as I said, 3.35 kilos. It goes up to about 8 kilos when you add all of the different pads. I think it's 7 in total, which can be customized. You could have your own stitching, for example, on them. Attached to the seat is the DNR control, so for selecting drive, reverse, launch control down here, auto start stop, and your warning light. So that literally moves forwards and back and is mounted to the driver's seat. So in a right-hand drive car it would be moved over to the other side. Seat itself is completely wrapped around. Of course, this is inspired by racing, holds you very secure. If you're going to hold the G-forces around corners that this car is capable of, you want to really be held in very, very tightly into this thing. But let's just take a step in and wake the car up. So with the opening in the roof and that gap there for the door sill, it actually makes getting in and out quite easy, even when you've got a helmet on. As you can imagine, it's all open right above me, so that makes it very easy to actually step in. And to pull the door to, you have a lever under here, a lever, I say, a hand grab. So you pull it from there, bring it down, soft close does the rest. But this is the crazy thing, the 360-degree experience that you have inside it, just because of how much glass there is, including the roof right up above us. And then this exposed strut looks so cool. I think that has to be painted either a contrast or the body color. Then the small window that's open, so getting a ticket from a parking machine isn't actually going to be too hard. One can still reach out and manage that. Then, as I mentioned, you have the controls up here on the roof, the fighter jet in style controls, so we can wake the car up for the moment. Just let us know, I think, that we're selected in race mode. That would be this button to confirm it, and then the car would stay in race mode and put the dashboard by default into the lower setting, but you can change the settings and controls for that. Also up here you've got the air conditioning hotkey, you've got the lock, and then these are the releases for the doors. So literally it's an electronic switch that will pop the door, and then you can give it a nudge with your elbow to open it upwards and outwards. And then here you've got your light controls and your window controls as well, which will take some getting used to, but that's all about the wiring loom. To save weight by not having wiring running towards the doors, it can just go towards the center, which makes complete sense. But literally, like I said, saving weight everywhere they could possibly save weight. Then looking forwards, you have these rocker paddles which move in sync, so if you shift the left, the right moves, you can move either way with your thumb, however you want to push it with either hand. Of course, race mode, so ignore the tire pressure warnings because you want them low for driving on the track. There's a plaque down here in the footwell, electronic handbrake, your light control, towing mode, that's the button to fold the screen that will jump it between the different driving modes. And then you can also select through active dynamics, which will change the view that you have. So the horizontal rev counter at the top is just in track mode or in race mode. That goes away when you go down into one of the different sport modes. You have the left as your handling and the right is your powertrain, similarly to how we've seen on other McLaren models, but comfort, sport and track modes independently controlled. Your different traction modes, manual if you want manual on the paddles, and this is the button to actually enable that panel to begin with. This screen itself, the floating tablet, obviously can position to the left or to the right for different markets depending which side of the road the steering wheel is going to be on in the car. And this is where we have access. If I just close the air conditioning button, you have all of the different things you would expect, including variable drift control, where quite literally the car has a pre-programmed level of slip that you can give it if you want to practice going sideways, but a downforce car is not appropriate for going sideways. That's more a 720S thing. Then you have radio, navigation, iPod, phone, and we get back to VDC, but everything's in there, all does what you would expect it to do, basically, nice and simply. And I promised I'd show you the view backwards, so check this out through to the engine bay. How magnificent is that? So that's one of the few options on the car, the Gorilla Glass that you can have for the rear window, along with the glass panels for the roof and the glass panels in the door. I think two of them are chargeable options, the one for the door and the one for the roof. Of course, it's slightly heavier having glass than the flat carbon fibre panel that you can have back there. Another one of the options is to have the Bowers & Wilkins system, which is installed just here. There's some fitted luggage that you can get to tuck into those canopies either side. And the final paid standard option is this, the McLaren truck telemetry package with 3 cameras. So you have one mounted here in the roof and the other in the front at the nose, one in the rear of the car as well. So that syncs up to the track telemetry software that the car has built in, which is connected to a box, records the video footage, and you can take it off on a memory stick and look at it later on if you want to analyze your track times and performance. So this is a really cool thing to have. You have a couple of other things like the lift system down here, cruise control. This car has adaptive lights. The front lights have a new LED system that means they're adaptive, so they turn as the car turns. Obviously the sound system puts in the speaker there by the window. You wouldn't have the speaker down there if you didn't opt for it, but then equally you wouldn't get the navigation controls. And at the end of the day, it is a road car. But you also have all this exposed carbon from the A-pillar down towards the dashboard. Everything, just carbon fibre everywhere. You look, in the centre you've got a rubber mat here that stops anything sliding around. There's a cigarette socket at the front, 12-volt socket if you need other devices connected. I actually have the key here as well, so you can see the McLaren key with the Senna button down there at the bottom, that way up, he says. There we go, you can see the picture of the Senna. Another storage bucket back here, currently with a seatbelt, but there are your USB ports, including for the track telemetry. That's where you would hook it up. So inside here, it feels like a real experience, even just to sit in it, because you're sat inside these seats with this bolster on your shoulders, but then with all of the glass and the amazing glass house style vision, which you don't normally get in this kind of car for the track. Yes, when you're driving around the track, you're not looking out the window at the floor to see if you hit the apex, but subconsciously the experience and feel of it is really quite phenomenal. And if we just turn it back off, press of the button, the car will go back to sleep. Gives us a little Senna graphic to let us know a few things like the odometer, fuel level, battery information, and time and temperature. And that's pretty much everything there is to show you in here. This car's finished with a leather dashboard instead of the Alcantara. I think for me it's a sportier car, so I'd go with the Alcantara configuration. And then stepping out, a little bit harder than the Sport Series, but to be honest, probably easier than previous cars with the bigger tub like the P1 and the LT, where the tub was more kind of up here as opposed to that lower section towards the front. Just that view. You can tell this tyre has been around the track, the way it's picked up rubber off the surface that's attached it, but it's just completely open and crazy what you can see as you walk around the car. The doors are super light, by the way. They open and close really, really easily. And then I was just talking about the lights. So the rear, you have this unit, this incredibly thin strip unit that weighs just 1 kilo. It has 84 LEDs, 60 for red, 24 for amber, for your brake lights, and of course for your turn signals, indicators or hazards. The third brake light is up there on the rear deck, as opposed to being on the wing where we've had it on previous McLarens. But this exhaust as well, slightly tarnished and showing that titanium wear. Here's your rear camera that I mentioned, your reversing camera, but also your track telemetry camera that will record your laps and data and performance. And the number plate is attached on a carbon fibre plinth as well, which is just nice. This car also has the contrast blue accent stripes around it. The centre lock wheels. You can get a carbon fibre wheel option, by the way. It's a £30,000 MSO option. There are a lot of other things you can do with MSO, for example, carbon roof, carbon snorkel, carbon end plates, different liveries, different colours, different interior trims, different parts, gold exhaust shield. There's a water drinks bottle system as well around the front. The adaptive LEDs, I think they're about 5 for the white lights, and then a series that do the 12 lights, 12 LEDs that do the adaptive system. Beneath that, all open at the moment. You can see actually here, with the flap open, how that works and how open it is. You can see down to the floor, straight through the car. That's really cool. You can see into the suspension system inside the wheel down there. Mega, absolutely mega. This opens up to reveal your windscreen washer fluid bottle and a couple of other useful things. You in here underneath the light, just open. Just see straight through it. Everywhere you look, you find nooks and crannies and gaps where you can explore and investigate through the car. And then the suspension we were talking about is the Race Active Chassis Control 3. So the latest iteration using the Race Active Chassis Control they developed for the P1, along with the Proactive Chassis Control 2 from the 720S, to create a new system. And hence when you put it in race mode, it locks itself down. So the way we've been driving it actually sits 39mm lower at the front, 30mm lower at the rear. So slightly more forward rake to it as well for downforce, for grip, and for general balance of the car. So it hunches down, sits down on the ground, and the wheels obviously give the effect of tucking up into the arches, which just makes it look even sportier and even cooler, especially how low it is to the ground. Just sitting here, it's literally, just for comparison's sake, that's how high it is off the ground. You know, it's like just a little bit more than my hand, which is really right down there. So it's going to be one of these that re-wears the 87 TB number plate when it's mounted on the plinth here at the front in due course. How crazy is that? The McLaren Senna. This is absolutely bizarre, to be honest. What a driving experience today. I mean, comparing it to the LT, because I think that is actually quite interesting. Obviously, I'm driving with a helmet and not getting all the noise as a result. It feels almost less vibration-y, less raw, more together, but so much quicker. The brakes are so much stronger. The turning and balance is even better, and the LT is a fantastic car. It's going to be really interesting to take the two together, to do some laps in the LT and then swap into the Senna and see if it's 10 seconds faster around a racetrack than an already very fast car. Has to be said, that actually sounded pretty good. Very, very loud when you're right next to it, so I apologise about that. But the car's just heading out now for, I think, probably their last stint of the day. But overall, this experience, driving in this fantastic machine, you just look at them, look at the way the wing sticks up when the car is out there on the tarmac, but how hunkered down it is. This colour is incredible, works very well with the silver wheels. As the wing just fine-tunes itself on the way out, you probably just caught that, sinking into the different modes, lining itself up. Wow, I think there must be 7 or 8 Sennas here in total today. What a fantastic day. I mean, the driving experience is just, well, Aero car, as we said, right? And off they go for another stint. Honestly, am I disappointed? No, not even slightly. Is it what I expected? Well, the expectation was set incredibly high, so almost impossible to exceed that, thinking that it was going to be the ultimate track toy, and it really and truly is. That feel like a proper GT3 race car, that's the only way to kind of describe it. Not quite as noisy inside in terms of the feel and the sounds of the stones and the like, but we are driving on an F1 style circuit. But just come back up here because no doubt cars are going to be flying by in a second. Just everything about this is mind-bending. Back in the pit garage, surrounded by the various carbon parts for the Senna, which is what mine is going to look like at some point before it's assembled. But this really kickstart the road to my McLaren Senna, and it sounds so ridiculous to say that. This journey is going to be incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to share how epic it is with you in the videos that are to come. Speaking of which, it's about 9 months now through to delivery next spring. In that time, I need to lock in my spec, get the order confirmed. It will get built early, I think, in 2019, ready for delivery to go out and attack the roads and tracks of Europe, and maybe even further afield. Who even knows? Just a quick thing about the spec. I'll come back to you with more on this in due course. I'm definitely going to be taking the Gorilla Glass doors and the roof and the bulkhead though. I think that's a signature part of this car, and I think also the sound system to make it livable with on the road, and also the McLaren track telemetry cameras to look back at the track data, because when I had that system on my LT Coupe, I really enjoyed it at pure McLaren track days and other track days that I did with the car. But it's going to go from these kind of carbon parts into one of these, ready for next season. How crazy is this? The first hypercar that I will have added to the fleet, to the collection, a long-term ownership proposition and investment, and it will be a car that I do go out and drive, and I can't wait to live with that and share what it's actually like with you guys as best as possible, and get it to as many events as I can for you to come along and see what the McLaren Senna is like in person. But believe me, if you have any concerns about the appearance, and that's one of the things it was highly critiqued for when it was unveiled, when you see it in person, it all starts to make sense. It is scientifically beautiful in the way the design is form following function. It is functional to the max. It is incredible in terms of its performance. It is unbelievable in terms of its speed and grip around corners. This is the McLaren Senna. As I said, it's worthy of its name. It is a legacy for the legend that was Ayrton Senna, and now also Bruno Senna's been driving them around today. He is a McLaren ambassador himself. What a day, what a drive, what a journey is starting now. Bring on the future Shmeemobile, the McLaren Senna. Thank you to McLaren for the opportunity to come along today, and to my co-driver for putting up with my driving around the track. I've had an awesome time, and it's only just beginning. Make sure you're subscribed to see all of the latest as and when in due course. This is it, the road to Senna. I'll see you soon. Cheers.